Okay, so what we did on our first session, we were working with installation. Let me get that notepad with me. Okay, I don't have it on this one. I was using the same laptop or maybe different one. Okay, I have it. Okay, so this is what we were working with. And we did CLI for 11G on that day. Okay,
Yes.
so what we're going to do is we will start with GUI for today. I have got enough space. I have changed my instance type as well. So we are good with memory. We are good with disk space. All right, so let's go to the directory which we created. This was the directory, middleware, and this is the installation which we did. Okay, so that's what we have. So what I'm going to do is right now we did this installation using CLI mode. So I'll create another one, another installation for now, and then we'll remove it. So we'll do GUI this time. So our Java is set. We don't need to do anything. We can just start with GUI for now. And anyways, I think you have already seen GUI, so that won't be so difficult for you, but let's just do it one more time.
Yes, sure.
Okay. All right, what happened? Okay. So maybe font was not installed on that day. Let me do the installation. Oh yeah, that day we were low on this space. So yeah, it was not done. So I'm just installing font because we are getting some junk characters, something like this. So that is what we are going to get into. That's going to take a while. So let it be. In the meantime, let's just see what we have done. So GUI is what we are doing. This is something completed. So installation prerequisite is what we are doing. And we also would be doing database installation later on. So let me see if we have database files available. Let me go to this one. Okay, so we do have databases with us, so that's good. Okay, we're good. We got it. Okay, so that's installation will be in progress. It will be installing all the fonts, but this is something which we have got. So we have got the fonts now. This is the welcome page. Let's go next. Again, so this says, do we want to use the existing middleware home or the new one? So we are going to use the new one because we're going to remove it for now. So I'll name it middleware GUI, just to make a segregation so that we know this is the new one we are picking up. And remember this, so first directory should be in place. This directory which you name, middleware or whatever name you give, that will be created automatically. So you don't have to worry about that. The first mount point should be in place. Okay, so this is something you need if your company requires security updates. And why do you need that? Because when you're working in a company, probably you need quarterly updates. So Oracle sends you automated mail saying that there are quarterly updates and you may have to apply patches or something. When you need that, you need to provide that email. But this email should be something which is owned by your company. So if your company is a platinum partner or gold partner or whatever, they'll have an email support email available with them through which they contact Oracle. So that's the email you'll be putting in here. For us, for now, we'll just remove it. We are not looking for support at this point, so we can remove it for now. And let's go next. So it will ask us for a confirmation. And then there are two installations which says WebLogic Server and Oracle Coherence. The same way which did for CLI, we have chosen both. When you go for custom, you have a choice. You can just go with WebLogic Server or you can go with both. When you do typical, it will be installing both for us. So let's go with both. We'll go with typical installation. And here it shows you the JDK, and this is a JDK which we have. We can just validate it once. Just to make sure that we have the right JDK. Let's say which Java, and it says /user1 SW JDK 80. So this is the right JDK which we are using. Just in case you find that your JDK is not right, you can choose your JDK, or if you're using if you want to use some other JDK, just browse it and choose the JDK which you want. All right, so let's cancel it for now, and then let's go next. And then it's going to create again WL server and coherence 3.1 on middleware GUI home. So that's the directory. Two directories it's going to create, one for WebLogic and one for coherence. And this is the installation summary. So it just shows you what all will be installed. So the application server, the console, the upgrade framework. This is mainly required because you want to create your domain and whenever you want to upgrade it. And then these are other components for HTTP, JDBC drivers, and other stuff. And then one for the coherence.
And in real time, do we install coherence as well?
Yes, so that's up to the company. Okay, so if they tell you coherence is required, you do. If they don't, you don't do it. So there are companies who don't use coherence. They will tell you not to install it. So at that time, you just go with WebLogic. But there many times companies do require it. Especially if there is a company which uses like websites and all, they may ask you to go for coherence. If they are just working with the application server or working with the dashboard and a few other things, they may ask you not to do it. But yeah, people do use coherence. So it also depends how the application is being designed. So if your application is not being designed to take advantage of coherence, probably you won't do it. But again, even if you install both, it doesn't matter. Okay. So if you're installing WebLogic and coherence as well, and if your application doesn't support coherence, it won't use it. It will just work with WebLogic server. So if you do typical installation, there is no harm.
Okay.
And that's it. So you install it using that. So it's done 68%, and that's quick fast. All right, now at this point, installation is completed, and you see that there is something called Run Quick Start. Okay, if you uncheck this, installation will be done and it will just go ahead. But if you don't uncheck this, the next window will come up, which is for configuration. I'll bring that up and then I'll close it and we'll run again from the script. So let's do that for now. So I just did done, and then there should be another window coming in. Okay, this is the previous one. Yeah, so this allows you to create a configuration. So it says getting started with the domain. So if you click on this, you will start creating domain. If you want to upgrade, you can upgrade, and then you can access documentation online. So it just gives you a link to do that. But what we are going to do is we just complete our installation here, and then we'll create domain through scripts, because that's what you would be doing most of the time. So let's not get into quick start, because that just allows you to do it. So most of the time, how it works in organization is you keep on installing and then you create your domain yourself, because you may want to do some customization. Otherwise, there is an option. As soon as you're done with installation, it prompts you to create domain, but then you won't know which script it runs. So let's close it and we'll go for that script ourselves. Okay, so installation is completed. So that's installing font. Let's go and see our new installation now. So now we will have two installation. So the first middleware home is our installation using CLI. Another middleware home is our installation using GUI, but there's no difference. It's exactly the same, just two different ways of installing things. So that completes our installation for GUI and console. Now we do have something called silent.xml, which we'll keep it for later, and we will do that as well. And this is something important when you may want to, automate installations, or you have to do it on hundreds of servers. You can just run it, or you can use one of the tools such as Jenkins or Bitbucket, like, or Chef, to do automated installation for you, just for saving time. If you're working with 3 or 4 environments, that's fine, you can do it manually. But if you're working on hundreds of servers, you want to automate it, silent XML comes handy at that time. All right, so let's see a domain first, so that at least we see how WebLogic looks and what the components of it. Before that, let me just tell you something about WebLogic in terms of what admin and managed server is. So whenever you create WebLogic, first thing it creates is domain. And domain is like building block of your WebLogic. Everything resides under a domain. So it's like all resources that gets created inside this domain. So let me just color it. Okay, so that's a domain. Next thing you create, as soon as domain is created, admin server will be created as part of that. Okay, let me choose a different color. So admin server gets created. And once that is done, so admin server is independent. So whenever you create a domain, admin server has to be created. Without admin server, you can't create a domain. Domain manages the resources, and in a way, admin server is responsible for it. Once admin server is created, you can create any resources within your domain. We start with managed servers. You can have any number of managed servers. In this picture, we'll just create 2 of them. I'll get you the better slides next time. I'll just have to edit it. Right, so these are the primary which you create. So you create admin server, you create managed server, and then there is something called node manager. You create something called node manager. Now what this node manager does is it takes care of these managed servers start and stop. And you can do it even remotely. So even if it's on other server, you can do that, but it's preferable that you have node manager or per instance. Now 12c, there are some differences. You can have node manager per domain or per instance, but 11g, you have it per instance. So in a server, you can have you can manage any number of managed servers using a node manager. Let me just write it down so to make it clear. So I'll just write nm for the node manager.
So node manager is only responsible for stop and start?
Yeah, so you can actually manage your servers using node manager. So mainly you use it so that you can provide an interface to your developer so that they would be able to do it themselves. Plus, it can be used for a few other things as well. Using WLST, you can automate your startup and all. So node manager is basically, when you use node manager, is you start and stop your managed servers. Plus, you can automate the configuration for your managed servers, such as the passwords and other things. For example, boot.properties files and other, which we'll discuss when we get in there. But yeah,
Okay.
basically, it is being used to start and stop your servers, managed servers, without using a script. If you don't have a node manager, you will have to start it from CLI. So from scripts directly onto your server. So what we'll do is, first time when we create managed server, we will start them from the Linux boxes. And then second time around, we will see that once we set up the node manager, we don't have to do that. We can start right from your console. So let's go step by step. So what we'll do first is, and that what we'll cover till today. So let's start with this. So these are the tasks for today. So create a domain followed by the admin server. Now, when you say domain, admin server actually gets created as a part of your domain, but still let's make it a separate one because there is a difference between your admin server and managed server. Although both are server, but admin server is used to manage your resources across the domain, but managed server is used to run your application. Now, you may ask a question saying that if admin server is a server and managed server is another server instance, why can't we use managed server to run your application? And these are the very popular interview questions. Your answer would be yes, you can use admin server even to run your application, and during development, people do that. So when in development, they don't want to go with managed server, usually admin server is created for them and they run everything on an admin server. But whenever you are in testing environment or pre-prod or production, it is recommended that you never deploy anything on the admin server. So you keep admin server to manage your resources across domain. Now, when you say manage your resources, it could be anything starting from your managed server, your JDBC, your security, JMS, everything, anything you can think of, anything inside domain is managed by your admin server. And that's the reason you don't put your application on admin server, because for some reason admin server is down, everything is down. And with managed server, you can use clustering and few other features so that your application is up all the time, even if your admin server is down. And that's the advantage when you work with managed server. So managed server is used for application deployment. Okay, so these are terms I'm using for now, but when we do it, you'll get a clear picture. But admin, just remember for now that you create a domain, you get an admin server, and using admin server, you manage resources for the whole domain. And it can be anything starting from your managed servers to any resources you create within your domain. While at the same time, when you create a managed server, that's specifically being used to run your applications or for application deployments. Okay, next thing we will do is node manager. Now you can say that node manager is optional, but it is recommended because sometimes as an admin, you will have access to start and stop servers from the backend, but you may need to provide that access, let's say maybe developers or testing team. There are few environments, a few companies decide that they don't want developers or testing team to give that access. You don't set up node manager at that time, or you don't provide access to your developers or testers to start themselves. Best way at that time is don't create a node manager, don't set it up so that they won't be able to start it. But in case you want to give them access to have some burden offload to them, you would create a node manager so that at least they can start and stop servers themselves. But when it comes to configuration, you keep it with yourself and an admin, and you do all the configuration yourself. You don't provide them access to change anything on the system so that they don't break it. But we would be setting up node manager for server start stop from console. Okay, so that's basically you use node manager to go for. Okay, so once that is done, before that we will learn how to start admin server. I'll just write start and stop both at the same point, followed by start stop manage server, and then start stop node manager. Okay, now all these steps which we are going to discuss, they are also same for 12c version, except for the one difference. Now in node manager, for especially for node manager in 11c, okay, remember this point. So for node manager in 11g, you have a start script but there is no stop script. So what does that mean? So if you don't have a stop script, how do you stop it? You mainly kill the process. Okay. While in case of 12c, they have again simplified it, and you have stop script in place. You can still kill it, but then you have a script available which you can use to stop node manager. Now this is only for the node manager, so remember that's not for your manage or admin server, but just for node manager. And that's one of the differences between your 12c and 11g. So that's one way it is being simplified. So 11g, no script to stop node manager, while in 12c you have a script for that. While starting, it's all same. Now, one more difference in terms of node manager is the location. That means the directory structure. So that's being different in your 11g and 12c. So in 11g, your node manager is outside your domain configuration files. So the actual domain, it is laying outside your domain. So mainly the outside domain directory, the config files. But in 12c, although we'll do 12c itself, but these are some of the differences that you should know in case you're moving into 12c. Because sometimes I've seen guys when they work with 11g and then when they move into 12c, this is something they really struggle with because they don't find node manager files. Sometimes they don't know where to run the scripts. So the script location and the config file locations, they are different. Okay, this should be inside. They are different in 11g and 12c. So that's something you remember. Even if you don't know the location, you can find it if you know that they are apart. Okay, so that's the difference between 11g and 12c in terms of node manager. Another difference in 12c for node manager is you have two ways to set up node manager. You have something called per instance and per domain. That's something you can do. But here you do it per instance itself. Like you just do per domain, you don't have it per instance. So that's one difference. So 12c has these two additions. All right, so let's start with first step. We are going to do create a domain, and that's what we are going to learn today. So our installation is done. Let me kill this. Why this is not getting killed? Okay, let me just kill it from here. Okay, that's got killed. Okay, so let's start it. So what I'm going to do is one problem with my AWS, that session doesn't lie for long. All right, let's open a new tab. Okay, now WebLogic is very easy to remove. Okay, so whenever you have a requirement that you did something wrong and you don't need that, you just want to remove that WebLogic installation, maybe you want to do a fresh, you can just remove the main folder where you have performed the installation. So in this case, we have two installations, middleware and middleware GUI. This one we did through CLI, this one we did through GUI, but again, the files are same and we can confirm it using this command. If we do diff, which is going to compare these two directories. Okay, it shows some differences. That is because the IP has changed since we were using it from the other day. But yeah, almost it's same. So there is no difference. It says there is a binary right here. You can see that home except this. Otherwise, it's all same. So you have same version here for Coherence, same version for WebLogic server. So what we can do is let's remove one of the installation, and I'll remove this GUI one because that name doesn't look good. That's it. So if you have installed something in this, once you remove that directory, your installation is gone. And then you have to redo it. So be careful. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. But if you have to remove that installation and even the domain and configuration, everything, just remove that directory and everything is from scratch. All right, so let's go with this installation and create a domain. Now, even for domain creation, similar to creating your installation, you have two options. You can use GUI, and you can also do through command line. So that means use a script, silent.xml, to create domain. And there's one more. Once your installation is in place, you can use something called WLST. Now, this is a special tool which is called Weblogic scripting tool. So this is nothing but there are some set of commands only for your Weblogic where you can just go and then create domain if you want to. And then commands are like create domain, upgrade domain, and all. So anything you want to do for your domain, you can use GUI, you can use silent XML and WLST. Now with domains, you can do two things. So first step is, we are not going to cover the second step, but I'll just tell you for now. So with domain, you can do two things is you can create it, and also you can extend it. Now, what does that mean? So we'll learn that once we create it, but when you create your domain, you are creating it for the first time. Now, when you extend it, then maybe you want to add something. You want to add more files into it, or you want to create more servers, some extra configuration and all. That's the time you extend it, and you extend only the existing domain. So when you create, it's always a new domain. When you extend, it's existing domain. So that is the difference between these two. So for now, we are creating it. So let's do that. So we are in this directory. This is coherent, so we are not going there. WL server. So this is where we go, and let's check for the files. So we have common, inventory, Leon, server, zip, uninstall. This is where we go. This is the file for 11G. Let's see the directory. We are right here. Okay, and now you can see that there is bin, deployable libraries. That's like because we have installed with examples, and node manager, plus you have some templates available and WLC. You won't be using all this. So quick start is what we got when we did the installation, and then we got the configuration. This is the quick start directory. This is from where we got it. Templates, we will be using it when we run it from bin. So this directory is important for Weblogic. So in case we want to create domain, or we want to set up node manager, so I'll just say domain config files and node manager config files. So these are the two files which will be here at this directory. So we'll set up node manager later. Let's just start with creating domain first. So let's go for this. Let's go inside bin. This is the directory, and we'll be using a file called config.sh. This is the file which we use to create or extend domain. Okay, so let's run it. And again, because we have GUI installed, by default, we are going to get a GUI, and it says configuration wizard. And that's it. So we got two options. We got create a new Weblogic domain, and we got extend an existing Weblogic domain. So for now, we don't have a domain. We just have an installation of Weblogic, so no domain as such. So let's create one. Okay, now this is what we got from the templates. And now people don't tell you all this, but yeah, I'm just telling you where you get these templates from. This directory right here. So all these templates are located here, and whatever options you see, that's because of the templates which are available right here. Now what we are going to select, so basic WebLogic server domain is already selected, 10.3.6, WL server 10.3. Now there are a few other options. If you're working with, let's say, web services, then it is recommended that you select this as well. If not, just ignore it. Maybe you just need a WebLogic server to deploy your stuff. That's it. You just need the first one. This SIP server domain is a bit different. That's for in case your company needs it. But yeah, no one is going to ask for that. So you're good with that. Web service, use this. So we will go with basic ones, and then we can try adding these when we'll try to extend our template. So while extending, we can choose this. For now, let's just create with a basic template. And where it will be creating, by default, it will be created in /user1/middleware. So we're not going with that. Okay. Now for domain, there is one more option. So let's say first time we created a domain. Okay. So domain is created, and from the created domain, you generated a template. Maybe next time you have to create similar domains. So instead of doing everything from the scratch, you can use this generated template to create new domain or another domain, I'll say. What is the advantage? Advantage is once you give this template, you don't have to select anything else. Whatever you did the first time while creating this domain, that gets captured in this template, and this template will create exact the same domain with the features you have selected the first time around. For example, this time I'm just selecting the first one. If I save a template next time, and if I choose that template, it will install this. But if I choose all of it, and then after that I create a template, next time I use that template to create a domain, it will be selecting all of these by default. So I don't have to do that selection because that becomes part of a template. So that's what it says, base this domain on existing template. But that's something you need to create. For now, we are just going, the first one, we are doing a fresh installation. So we are just going with create domain option. Okay, I'm clicking on next. Now here, if you don't change name, by default, it says base domain, but you can change a logical name based on why you're creating it. For example, you are creating it for HR group. Okay, you can say HR domain or something or anything else. This can be provided to you in SOW document, which company shares, or the environment creation document, which is provided either by developers or the management team or a business analyst, one of those guys. So they may share what domain names they want it to be. Sometimes they are not very sure, and then they leave it up to admin. So as an admin, it's your responsibility to provide it a name, but make it a logical name depending upon what kind of environment you're creating. So for example, you're creating this environment for some specific release, which is going to work with a particular product. Give it that name and call that domain. So that's it. So, but this name is customizable. You can provide it anything. If you don't do that, it will get created with base_domain, but don't create with that. Just give it some name. Okay, and this is where your domain directory will be. Now, this directory won't be existing right now. Let's just go and check it on our Linux box. So if I do LSLD for now, it doesn't exist. But as soon as domain is created, that will get created. It just tells you this is the location where you're creating it. Now, this is a default one, user_project/domain. But sometimes organization, they don't want to go with user projects. They want to remove it, or they want to give it some other name right here, maybe Oracle Home, or some specific name which they want to design based on the SAN storage they use, or maybe they want to replicate storage at file system level. So they can give you another name. So if they do so, create it. If not, just go with standard, which is this, the default one. Okay, let's go with the next option. Now here, this is where it gives you the admin password or the domain level password. So whenever you start admin for the first time, you will need that. So what I'm going to do is I'll just say Weblogic, or let me give welcome one. That's the standard Oracle password. And it is good practice that you save this name. So for now, I'm just writing it.
Is this mandatory, or we can skip that username?
No, you can't skip it. So this is something very mandatory. Using this, you log into your admin console. So you log into your domain using this. So you can't skip this.
Because later, if you want to configure LDAP or something for the global security,
you can do that. So this, what you are doing right now, it is embedded LDAP, which is embedded into your WebLogic. Now, when you do LDAP externally, maybe you're using OID or Active Directory or anything, you set up separately and that's get connected. But this is embedded LDAP, so you can't ignore it because that's part of the product. But yes, whenever you want to use LDAP, you can certainly do that. But then that comes as a separate configuration. We will discuss that when we go into security piece of WebLogic. So at that time, we'll check for LDAP. And we can also check for Kerberos if you want, like Active Directory, how it works. But yeah,
sure.
for now, this is embedded LDAP, so you can't ignore it because this is piece of product, you can say. So username is WebLogic, small case, and password, what I gave right now is welcome1. And this is anything you can give, or sometimes company tells you to give a standard password, you have to stick to that. If not, use any password you wish. All right, let's go with next. And let's check the JDK. So this is the JDK which we are using. We are good with that. Now, whenever you install WebLogic, you get two modes, development mode and production mode. Now, there are some differences between development mode and production mode. And what are those? So if you are creating, one simple way to do is development mode is something you should use when you're creating it for developers, as simple as that. And production for testers, prod team, or maintenance team. Okay, now why is that? Now developers, they want an easy way to work with the environment. They don't want to, perform a deployment in a start environment all over again. So there should be an easy way for them. So development provides some of the easy features. So it is lenient in terms of security. So you can say low level security, not, so security is very lenient. Plus deployment, you can say automated auto deployments. So you just place a file in directory and that's get deployed for you. So those kind of differences is what it has. While when you are production mode, you can't change anything. So for every change needs to be confirmed. And that's the reason this has got tight security. While in development mode, you don't need to confirm, like whatever changes you do, it's being done automatically. So what I will do for now is, because that's another interview question when it comes into picture. So sometimes they say, let's say you have created a development mode WebLogic. So this is the domain you created, okay? And you did it by mistake. Now, you don't want to scrap the environment, but you want to change it to production, right? So the same environment, you want to change it to production. And that is something you can do using WebLogic console, or you can use it using WLST as well, or using a backend update by updating the configuration files. So for now, what we'll do is we'll first create development mode, and then we will change it to production mode so that you learn how to do that if ever such thing happens. So you can do it both ways, development to production or production to development. Okay, so let's start creating with this. There is one more advantage with development mode. You don't have to provide passwords. So you don't need boot.properties files and everything. You don't have to set up that being done automatically. But in production, that is something you have to do it. So here, when you create boot.properties file, you can have username and password. Encrypted. That means you can see username and password. While when you have it here, and I'll show you that, it is always encrypted. So no compromise on that. That's the reason we create development only for developers, because you don't bother about security, you don't bother about anything, boot.properties files, runs everything. You can see the username and password because they are in simple text format. You can read it. While when you run it production mode, first time around, you would be able to see it because an admin, but anyone else gets into your system, they will not have access to that because that file will get encrypted and username and password will not be visible in simple text. And we will see that when we get there. Okay, so we're going to start with development mode and then we'll switch on to production. So we're good with this, going with development mode. We have chosen our JDK. Now at this point, you can select your admin server, managed server, or RDMS security. So while creating or domain, you can choose managed server, admin server, clusters, node manager, and everything. But for now, what we are going to do is let's just create admin server and then we will learn how to create it through console. And then when we create domain next time, we will see that you can create it right from here as well. So what happens if you don't select it? That's one of the interesting questions. Sometimes, guys, they ask you to test it, how much experience you are, okay? So if you do next, what happens then? You see that admin server is selected by default, okay? So that's a catch. Sometimes people ask you this interview question just to check how much you have worked with WebLogic and what's your knowledge into it. So if they try to trick you, this is what you can say. So if you don't select anything, admin server gets selected by default. Why? Because domain won't get created until admin server gets created. Because admin server is something which manages your resources, manages your managed server across the domain. So if you're creating a domain, admin server will get selected. So if you do this and click next, it will just allow you to change port number, enable SSN and all. But if you don't do this, it just goes to the next one and it will create admin server with a default port, which is 7001. So that's something you have to remember. The default port is 7001. For now, I'm just selecting it. That's just for your information. I told you that if you don't select it, admin server will get selected by default. Okay. If you select admin server, it allows you to change the name of the admin server. So you can just say admin server, or anything associated with that. And then you have something called listen address where it says local address. Now, usually when you do it at home or even in a company, you always choose all address. But sometimes companies stick it to a particular IP. So they don't want it to run on local host, okay? Local host or anything. So they'll just ask you to choose a particular IP and nothing else. So you should not be able to use localhost for that purpose. They'll ask you to choose that IP, so everything goes with the IP configuration. But then at other times, they just allows you to do it. They'll ask you to change all local addresses. So, and port is something you can change. By default, it is 7001. We'll keep it to that. But yeah, this is something you can change. Now, 7001 is good, but everyone knows that it is default. So companies sometimes ask you to change and give it a different name, maybe 9001, 8009, or anything they wish, they feel comfortable with. They'll ask you to change it to that particular port. Okay. Now,
Then
yeah.
listener address usually will give the machine where we are creating the domain admin server, right?
The listener port or the listener address?
Listener address.
Yeah, so listener address is, if you run it by default, it will take the existing IP of the machine where you're creating your domain. That will be taken by default. So let's say if this particular machine IP is 192.162.8.199, it will take that by default and it will give you localhost. Sometimes it will also give you IPv6 addresses and few other addresses.
Okay, if you give all local address, it will take by default the IP address of the machine.
Yeah, so it will take by default IP address plus your local address plus your IPv6 address as well. So if that particular server has 4 or 5 different addresses, it will take all of them. And that's why I said sometimes company, they tell you not to use local address because they don't want you to use all address, because you have something called IPv4 addresses, IPv6 address, localhost, and sometimes they virtualize. So there could be a virtual IP as well. Okay. So now when you choose localhost, that means if you run ifconfig on your Linux box, whatever addresses you see, all those addresses will be part of your local address. If you run IP on ifconfig and the number of IPs you get on your system, everything will become part of your local address. But when you don't choose local address and you change it to something, you just choose one of the addresses. So out of IPv4, IPv6, local host, or virtual IP, you'll be just choosing one. For example, here, as soon as I clicked on this, it's giving me two addresses because I just have two IP onto this one and the local host. And we can confirm it using this. If we run, okay, that got expired. No problem. Config. Right, so you see that I just have two addresses for now, Ethernet 0, and there is a loopback address. So this is the address which is just taken, and then this one. So if you have more address appearing on your Linux boxes, all those addresses will be considered, and those are all your local addresses. But if, let's say, in case you have 5, your company may tell you they just want to run out this particular IP, so you just choose this, and that's what you specify here. But local address means all of the address on your server box. Okay, so that's about address. Default port is this. If you choose SSL, by default, it's 7002. Okay, but again, this is something you can change, and you can enable it, disable it. For now, I'm just going with choosing SSL as well, so that we can see that it runs on HTTP and HTTPS as well. And we'll keep it to default for now. Okay, so we are on the final page, which says configuration summary, what we have selected. So basic WebLogic server domain is creating a domain, and this is a location where it would be creating that. So it is using templates. You can see that from the templates folder, wls.zar. Again, sometimes people trick you for that. They ask you which template is being used for WebLogic installation. So if you don't know that, that's fine. Just tell them, okay, those templates are located inside templates folder. I don't remember the name, but I know that it is inside that templates folder. So that should be enough. Now, whatever templates we select, everything will be inside templates folder. Now, this template, wls.zar, is for WebLogic. We saw that there were a few other templates were available for selection. For example, SIP server, JPC WS, JPC RAC. So all those templates are resides under templates folder. Okay, for now we are good. We have just selected admin server. Let's create it. Okay, that's being done, right? So domain created, all these things are done. It gives you a URL as well. So there is a URL for HTTP and there is a URL for HTTPS. But can we access it? Let's try it. So what I have is this one. Okay, before that, let me just do one thing. I sudo IP tables. That just to remove my rules which I have. Otherwise, I won't be able to access it. Okay, so let's just see. Let's go back, pick the EC2 address, and try to get it. Okay, so that's my IP. The port was 7001, and you have to type console. That's an addition. That's where you get your admin console. But we are not going to get it. And reason is pretty simple, because the server is actually not running. Okay, how do we confirm that? If you do ps-ef grep admin, because we know that our server name is admin, it shows nothing. That means it is not running. If it is not running, you are not going to get console. So that is what it says. So what we need to do is we need to start our server. Okay, so let's go back and check where our domain is created. So where are we now? We are inside this. Now we will go and check for our domain. So it was created inside middleware home, and there is a directory created called user projects. Let's go in there and domains. This is the domain name which we created, and bin. Okay, now to start domain, this is the script called start weblogic.sh. You can say that this is a domain start script or admin server start script. So I'll start with nohub command, and I'll use it ampersand just to run it on background, and nohub. So I actually started Oh, okay. Right. And you see that now server is running. Let's try hitting it one more time. All right, must be something wrong with this one. Let me do an installation here. Sudo, okay, that's not working. There's my AWS cloud machine, so that gets expired really fast. Okay, this is working. Yeah, sudo yum install Firefox. Okay, there is no Firefox here. Oh, okay. I just need to set up one rule here because I have not enabled those rules. So let me just change it quickly. And that is specific to AWS, so don't worry about that. This is more like opening that particular port combination on my server. So what I have is this one. And let me check for demosec group. And inbound rules, yeah. So there are only 2 ports enabled, port 80 and port 22. So I need to make some adjustments. And for now, I'll just say, let's open a port. And I'll say all traffic for now, or I can just say open that particular port 7001. So I don't have a port called 7001 here. But what I'm doing for now, I'm opening all the ports so that I don't have to enable all the time. So 0265535, any ports that should be available. Okay, so this. All right, so that's being done. Yeah, so I've just enabled the port so that 701 should be available, and that's it. We got the console, right? So this was our URL name, Weblogic, and welcome. One. All right, so that's our console. Okay, let's just see a few of the things. So how do I make sure that this is the right console I'm connected? So a few things I would like to determine here. First thing is, okay, user is WebLogic, which can be common for others, but this is what I should be bothered about, connected to HR domain. So my domain should be this. So that tells me that I've connected to right domain, and you can check domain here and as well as here. These are the 2 places where you can check your domain for. Okay, now let's go and create new server, and these are different options available. So you have domain, you have environments, all these options, which will be just in all of it. But for now, we will be sticking to environments, and let's go for servers and check what server we have. For now, we just have admin server, state running, health okay, and this is the port it's running. Now let's check one more thing. So we did create something called HTTPS, so that should be working on HTTPS as well. Let me open it to the new one because the port is wrong. So I'll just open new one. I need to make port as 7002 because SSL port is different. Okay, so SSL is not working at the moment. We can check on that. Maybe the demo files, it is not accepting that. All right, so we need to add HTTPS as well. So we have enabled HTTP by default, but HTTPS is not enabled. Again, it has to do with security group, which we can add in. But for now, we can go with this. Or did server went down? Let's see. Okay, it's still running. Okay, So this is admin server is running. Now, if I have to create managed server, let's create one managed server through console this time, and I'll call it ms1. Now, if I don't specify any address here, by default, the current will be taken up. But if I want to specify address, let's say if I'm working in cluster, I can put in that particular IP. For now, we are just working on the same server, we can use it. Now, what I need to do is, if I am working on same machine, I need to change my port. If I don't do that, it will fail while trying to start the server. So I'll make it 3. And it says, is this a standalone server or is it a cluster? So we're going to discuss cluster later on. So I'll just say standalone for now. Okay, that's it. Finish, done. All right, server is created. Now, to see that we are creating all these, we don't need a confirmation because we are in development mode. So everything is getting created automatically. Let me try. So there is an option to start a server here. Let me try starting the server. It says server does not have a machine associated with it. That means there is no node manager being set up for this particular server. So if I have to start this server from console, I must set up a node manager. But before that, let's try starting this managed server through our command CLI, through a script. Okay. Now this is the script to stop managed server. This is the script to start managed server. And this is the script to start admin server. This is the script to stop admin server. Now, this was easy. You just give the script name and you can start your admin. But for this, you need some options. And if you don't know that, a good way to find out is just this. Run this and it will tell you what it needs. So this is how you should be running it. You will be using a script, then you have to specify managed server name. In our case, managed server name is ms1 is what we have given. And then the admin IP, HTTP, the admin URL followed by the port. You don't have to include console here. So let's do that. Let's start it for now. I'll say ms1. And then this I can copy it as it is because that gives me the admin and port combination. Now here it is asking me for Weblogic username and password. So let me provide that, Weblogic. And password was welcome1. And that's it. So server, it says running mode. Let's go and check it. So it's running. So what I did, I started both of them from command line. Admin server is running, managed server is running, and both of them started through command line. Now I just started through command line, just in case I do control C, it will kill all of it. Okay, and it says shutdown, 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 force shutdown. If I'll go back, right? So for that, what you can do is you can run it through no hub, but then there is a problem if you run with no hub. And that is when I started this managed server, it prompted me for username and password. But if I'll use no hub, I won't get a chance to provide it because then it starts running on backend and I can't provide this username and password at backend, right? So for that, what we can do is we can create something called boot.properties file. Okay, and how to do that? Let's go and do that. So we'll be coming outside this directory on our domain, and there is a folder called servers and ms1. So I'll go to ms1. Let's just first see at admin server. Admin server, there is a folder called security, and there is a file, right? Boot.properties. Let's check that file. So there is a username and the password. Yeah, it's Weblogic welcome1, but we don't see it. So what I can do is I can copy the same file inside that. So let me get this directory, which is this, and let's go out. But there is no security directory here. So if it is not existing, just create one. Okay. And now what I'll do is I'll copy that particular file, boot.properties, this one. inside security directory. That's it. Let's go in. I got the file. All right, so file is there. Now let's try starting it one more time. And let's see if this time it's prompts for the password. This is the command. It says starting, checking my rehams, and then running. So this time I was not prompted for the password. Why? Because now it's taking it from boot.properties file. So in case you don't have that, create a security folder, copy boot.properties, and then it will work for you. Yeah, any questions?
Is it mandatory to give, means start managed server, and we are giving the managed server JVM name, and is it mandatory to give the HTTP something IP, that IP address and the port number?
Okay, yeah. If you are starting managed server from command prompt, you need to provide that. That's mandatory for every managed server. Why? Because managed server can start only when it knows what admin server it has to connect to. Okay. So if it doesn't know which admin server to connect, it can't start on its own. For that reason, we need to pass admin server URL and the port so that managed server knows, okay, which admin I'm starting on. And reason for that is pretty simple. Let's say this is one of the installation we did, and we created one of the domain, right? But you can create another domain as well on the same box. That's possible, right? Because you know how to create a domain. You will create one domain, HR domain, and you can create another domain, let's say finance domain, okay? There will be one managed server, MS1 in HR domain, and then again on finance domain, you have created another managed server with the same name, MS1. Because domains are different, you can have them the same name. But when you say start managed server, MS1, how does it know which MS1 to start? So you need to pass on the admin server URL and the port. And so it's mandatory.
But we'll go to the different file system, right? Altogether, means installation directory to start the managed server, right?
Yeah, but still, what happens? The reason for passing on admin is when you pass admin, managed server actually gets its configuration from admin server. Any changes we do is done by admin server. As we know that, right? What admin server does,
Yes.
it manages
Yes.
your resources. So whenever you do some changes, admin server changes the configuration, and that configuration file is within admin server directory. Now when you start admin managed server, what it does, it syncs its configuration file with admin server configuration file, and then it starts it. And that's the reason we have to provide that. Now, to avoid that, we set up Node Manager so that you don't have to do all this from the back end, and Node Manager can take care of it automatically. So Node Manager keeps a file of boot.properties, and you don't have to create boot.properties file for managed server as well if you use Node Manager. Okay. Right. So I think that's a lot of information for today. So I think we'll just keep it till here, because then if we cover a lot, it may confuse you a bit, right? I think it should be good till here,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So let's keep it till here. I'll give you some time to grasp that, and then we will go ahead with whatever we have next in our kitty, which is, so we have done till here so far. So we will, and we have actually done this as well, but again, we will be doing it tomorrow with Node Manager. So we'll be covering that again with Node Manager, but we actually have done first, second, third, and fifth and sixth already. What we have pending is Node Manager, and then again, setting up a few other things. We did boot.properties file as well.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Okay, so let's wrap up here, and I'll stop this recording, and we'll connect again tomorrow at the same time.
Sure. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a good one.
Bye.